Good morning. It is my time to wish you Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath to all those who are here with me at the Biblical Lifestyle Center on this rainy Shabbat morning in Texarkana, USA, as well as all of those who consent joyfully and thankfully that you've allowed me to come into your homes and speak directly to your hearts, to your families, to your children, to your futures, to your destinies, and speak hopefully a powerful, encouraging word of the Creator of the universe into your life, over your world, and to instill in you a level of confidence that the Holy One is indeed working, will continue to work, and is on your side if and to the extent when you follow the covenant and follow Yeshua, Mashiach. This is a very fascinating week. It is the week of Parsha Shelach Lecha. Numbers 13, 1 through 15, 41. It's about 3 chapters worth of the heart of the book of Numbers in the wilderness, or Bamidbar, as it's called in the Hebrew. There was a previous parsha, for those of you who are familiar with this, with the cycle, that was called Lecha, very similar to Shelach Lecha, same last word, Lecha. For you, for yourself, Lecha. But the first word was a little different. It was Lecha. And that was whenever in Genesis 12:1, the Holy One spoke to Abraham, and he said to Lecha, go out for yourself, or unto yourself, to find out who you are, to find out about what you are here on earth to do. Go out, Lecha. Well, this is Shelach Lecha, which is a little different verb at the beginning. Shelach means to send out, to send forth for yourselves. Again, we have the same lecha at the second word. Send out for yourselves, again, in order that you may find out who you really are and what life is really about for you, and what decisions you will have to make. Now, here's the fascinating, a little bit disconcerting, at least in the first initial glance, part of this. In Lech Lecha, what we had was immediately a separation take place, a thinning of the herd, so to speak. In other words, what Abraham was called to do was go out from someone. There had to be a separation. Some would be left behind, and his parents, his father, he was already passed away, but the family would have to be left behind. And so it is with Shelach Lecha. When we do this whole process of going through the annual cycle, and we come to this week every year, we see a thinning of the herd. We see a separation taking place. There's those who will be a faithful remnant, those who will follow the will of the Holy One, who will walk in the ways and actually live out the words of the Holy One, and those who are in this for something else. Maybe what they could get. Maybe they wanted freedom from the bondage of the world. Maybe they wanted a sense of empowerment, of power over the world, or superiority of some variety. Whatever they wanted. One thing that you'll see a separation this week between those who have a whole heart to serve the Holy One, and those who are of a spirit that has been revived by the Creator of the universe and His breath, and those who are in this for some other reason. The separation will take place. Just like in Lech Lecha, there will be a great separation. And what we will see is you have to make a choice which group you're in. Each of us this time of year, this is a critical, crucible week. We have to decide, why are we in this? Why are we following the Holy One? Why are we studying the Torah? Why are we participating in some kind of a messianic plan, a messianic vision? What is it? What do we want from this? What do we expect from this? Are we truly going to be faithful to the end? Or will we be some of those that are left behind? I don't mean in the Tim LaHaye sense. I mean those of us who saw great things, who sensed great things, who had great insight at one point, but when the critical crucible time came, and the challenges were confronting us, and the test was being put to us, we said, no, I can't handle that. I can't do that. Y'all go ahead. And the people like Yehoshua and Caleb, Joshua and Caleb for most of the standard folks who learn English, these folks will go on. And they will carry a new generation with them. And they will build up, and they will strengthen, and they will have a vision for the future. But those who were in it for another reason, with a lesser commitment, with a lesser understanding of why they're here and what the purpose is, they will, as it said, die in the desert, die in the wilderness. And their children will be the ones who will go in, or their grandchildren, or their grandchildren will go in instead. Parsha number 37, we're right sort of past the middle point. We're in the powerful stage of the Torah where it's make it or break it, live or die. We have to decide at what level we want to play this game. And I use the term game as Paul did, okay? I don't consider this a game. This is very serious. But in order to form an example, form a drash, Shaul of Tarsus used this idea of the game, the sport, the one who runs the race. And this is, so I'm using that same sort of analogy here. At what level do you want to play this game? Are you a spectator? Are you know the game's going on, and you're on one side or the other, maybe cheering for one side, or are you an armchair quarterback? You want to tell everybody else what they should do, what's wrong with what they're doing. You want to criticize. You want to be considered the expert, even though you're not even on the field. Or do you want to be on the sidelines, maybe having a chance to go in at the last minute? Or are you ready to participate in this game? Are you ready to toe it up at the line of scrimmage? Are you ready to face that big guy on the other side of the line, the giant on the other side of the line? Are you ready to go in there and say, you know what? My God is bigger than you, and my calling is bigger than sitting on the sideline. And so at this particular stage, this is the moment. This is the critical tipping point of Torah. What are you in this for? And what you're in it for, when you make the critical decision, will determine what you get out of it. So, I call this the Parsha of Amazing Grapes. We have a song that most of the world knows called Amazing Grace. But this is the Parsha of Amazing Grapes. And the grapes can be sweet or the grapes can be bitter, depending on how you taste them. As you remember, this part of the story involves grapes. There's a great cluster of grapes in Valley of Eshcol. And this great cluster is cut by the spies who will be sent out in this Parsha and taken back and demonstrated. And the question becomes about the grapes, the amazing grapes. Were the grapes there? Does the land of Canaan, the land that would be, was destined to be and will be Eretz Yisrael, when the Canaani and the Amaleki and the Perizi and the Amori all had possession of the land, did it really produce these kind of grapes? Or did they only come forth when the people of the covenant came in? In other words, were the grapes there, or when the people arrived and the blessing of the sons of the living God, the covenant came, did the grapes then grow and burgeon into what they would see? This is the question to ask. Do you expect the world to produce things for you? Or do you understand that part of the world's fruitfulness and its plan to get back to its Garden of Eden state depends upon you? Depends upon your participation, not solely, because the ultimate guardian, the ultimate author, the ultimate designer and choreographer of this process and empower of this process is the creator of the universe himself. This is his plan. But at some stage, we have to realize we are part of the plan. We are a significant part of the plan. And what role are we willing to play? At what risk to ourselves and to our children and our families? At what risk to our well-being? At what risk to our lives? Are we willing to play? Parsha of Amazing Grapes. Now, the other thing is fantastic figs and pungent pomegranates and all these things. And it will be a Parsha I call the Parsha of remembering Amalek. Some people call him Amalek. And you recall, we were told to remember him because he's going to resurface this week. This is the first ones. This is the first people we see as the spies go out. The first ones they run into is Amalek. Were you traumatized by your first encounter with Amalek? Do you have post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of that battle? Are you fearful? Did you retain some level of fear of Amalek? Do you have a sense of hatred toward him, of fleshly hatred, where you are, because fleshly hatred is based upon fear. We hate them because we fear them. We hate them because of what they could do to us or what we fear they would do to us. All hate is based in fear. That's why those who hate are the weakest people of the earth. They're the weakest people you'll never know. Those who hate are the weakest among the human being of the human complex. They're not the strongest, they're the weakest because they fear what someone else could do to them. And so Amalek will be faced in the Negev, the first people we will run into as we cross over, the spies will run into, I should say, as they cross over in the Promised Land, are the Amalekite. They will be there and they will be frightening. And so the question becomes, if you're going to have to face your old enemies, are you afraid to face your deepest fears? Well, the answer to that question, of course, is in your natural flesh you are. We all are. That's why it's a fear. That's why it's a deep fear, a deep-seated fear, is that we are living in the flesh. And in the flesh we have been injured, wounded, threatened, intimidated, felt like nothing, felt in danger by someone else in the world at some stage in our life. We have been demeaned, we have been maligned, we have been humiliated, we have been betrayed by someone in the world in the past. And that has scarred us in our flesh, in our natural, mortal, old man flesh. We are scarred by these things that have happened to us in the past. Before we can go into the fullness of the participation of the plan that the Holy One has for us, we have to face that fear. We have to face that wound. We have to face that scar. So I would presume this week that as the Torah is prophetic of your life, it tells you what it's your script for the week. And some of you have had to face your fears, have faced those who have hurt you, have seen people who you don't like and you're afraid of, and maybe they have a tinge of hate, at least unforgiveness and animosity toward. By virtue of the fact of a past experience, or at least your interpretation of a past experience, especially when we're children, we don't really get a full, accurate perspective on what happened. We only get what it felt like to us. And even in young adulthood and marriage, early marriages and things like that, we begin to hold wounds and scars based on our perception of what happened, how we interpret the facts and the observations, and how we apply opinion and emotion to that. I hope I'm not getting too complicated for you here. Remembering Amalek. I call it also the parsha of what happens when elders, we talked about elders last week. We talked about the idea that a society, an ethnicity, a family, whichever level of societal interaction you wish to go on, a marriage, can only go and succeed as far as the elders take it. As far as if the elders are not quality, if they're not focused on the future, upon the progeny, and upon the seed, and upon cross-generational goods, then what you find is a very self-centered family, a self-centered nation, a very self-centered ethnic group, whatever it is, culture. You find these things. And so now the issue is the quality of your elders. Well, this week is the parsha of what happens when elders go rogue. R-O-G-U-E. When elders go rogue. When elders are not acting like elders. When elders do not hold on to, when they're part of the cold group, the people who are left behind because they just didn't hold on to the calling and the covenant and the promises. And they begin to turn on their own. I mean, we have seen some things happen in our society over the past couple of years. Some things happen in the world, however you wish to interpret them, but what they have revealed is who will turn on their neighbor, who will turn on their friend, Who will report them to the police if they think they're not fulfilling some obligation? Who will blast them on social media? Who will turn on you? When your elders go rogue, or when your neighbors go rogue, or when your former friends or associates go rogue, how will you handle this? Because this is going to happen. Yeshua promised this would happen. Mother, father against everyone against everybody. This is going to happen, but there will be a remnant. There will be a faithful remnant who holds strong and carries this through. Many are called, but alas, only a few are chosen, because only a few refuse to turn their back on their neighbor, refuse to become the accuser, refuse to be the reporter, refuse to be the critic and the judge. Instead, they focused on the mission and not leaving a brother behind. Well, this is the challenge of this. What happens when elders go rogue? The spies are all elders. You realize that every one of these ones who were named and sent out as a spy. There were 12, one from each of the tribe other than Levi. Levi's tribe stayed behind. The 12 tribes, the other tribes went, and each one of them had an elder, a leader of the group that went. 10 would come back, as you well know. The story, most of this is one of the most famous stories in the Bible, much less in the Torah. And this story tells that 10 will come back, and they will make what's called a negative report, a report of Ra, self-centered. This is how it's going to affect us. Narcissistic approach to what they've seen. And 2, however, Yahushua and Caleb. Joshua and Caleb for the Westerners among us, will instead say, no, the plan of the Holy One is this. We need to follow the plan of the Holy One, and it will work because He is with us, and we will do what we do, He will do what He does, and this will be successful. So, our elders will go rogue. 10 of our elders, at least, will go rogue. And here's the other situation. Only a remnant will remain. And that remnant will be more than enough. And it'll turn out that 600, we had a census recently of all these 12 tribes, not including Levi. We had a separate census of that. But we know how many people, men at least, over the age of 20 years, are in these 12 tribes. 603,550. That's a lot of men. That's a lot of men in these 12 tribes. 603,550. Now here's what we know. That of those 603,550 men, 2, that's a very small percentage. That is a very tiny remnant. 2 will stand fast, stand strong, be faithful to the end. 2 of those 603,550 people will be worthy and worthwhile, and you can trust them and you can follow them anywhere, because they will be leaders that will have a generation behind them that they bring up behind them. Now, that's a little disconcerting to most of us who have friends and who have walked in this movement. For instance, me with over 30, almost 30 years now. And seeing people that I know have abandoned the process and are leaving the process and are thinning out. The herd is thinning out. As we get deeper into the process and as we get more intense with the struggles that we need to face and the things we need to overcome. And this is real. This is not stuff we do in an ivory tower or a study hall somewhere. This is how we live. This is how we overcome evil with good. This is how we do the things Yeshua taught us to do. This is how we do the things that keep us focused on the plan and the strategy and the mission of the Holy One for us, and bring a redemption and restoration and reconciliation possibilities to this world, creation as well as humanity. This is how we do it. This is not games we play theologically. Who's right and who's wrong about some doctrine, or about the Torah in general, or about Messiah in general, or about what name you do or do not use, or any of those. Those are games played in ivory towers. The real question becomes when the rubber hits the road and the giant stands in front of you, and they laugh at you and mock you and challenge you, and your neighbor turns and runs the other way, or accuses you of being in the wrong, with the one who's causing the trouble. What do you do then? Are you a Yehoshua? Are you a Caleb? Or are you one of the 503,448? Now here it is. If you're only one, if you're only two, where two or more are gathered, there the Holy One is in the midst of you, Yeshua said. Now he used these terms. He didn't just throw stuff out, make stuff up. Where two or more of you are together, are flowing together, then I will be there in the midst of you. And so two is enough. Two will be more than enough to do all the things that need to be done for the plan to be fulfilled. And alas, the 503,448, our hearts mourn for them, but we cannot quit because of them. We must do what we are called to do. I want to remind you of a scripture. This is sort of the scripture, the passage of the week. I want to refer you to Psalm 91. Now, if you're familiar with this book of Psalms, and there is some dispute about this, obviously. This is all things about the Bible have some dispute. So I'm not going to get into the issues of who's right or who's wrong in the dispute. But there is a strong position that beginning with Psalm 90, which specifically says, this is a song of Moshe, the man of God. Psalm 90, Moshe, the man of God. Psalm 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, and 98, and 99. Those 10 Psalms. The tradition is that these are the Psalms of Moshe. Moshe's Psalms, as a result of the wilderness experience, as a result of what happened out here in Bamidbar, in Parsha Shelach Lecha, and subsequently in Parsha Korach, and Parsha Hukat and Balak, all these processes, all the things that happened, the test in the wilderness, that Moshe wrote these 10 Psalms. And the second one, we know the second one begins, he who dwells in the shadow of the Almighty and abides. You know this process. And he says, and then it goes on in verse 7. He says, 1,000, this is the psalmist Moshe saying, 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand. But it will not come near you. Only with your eyes you will look and you will see the recompense of the Rasha, of those who are solely self-consumed with their own interest. Because you have made the Holy One, who is my refuge, he says, even the Most High, your dwelling place. For that reason, no ra, no evil will befall you, nor will any plague come near your dwelling. For he will give his angels charge over you. Zavah. He will give them this protection of the armies over you, to shamar you, to treasure you, cherish you, and protect you, and defend you, and guard you in all your ways. And then toward the end of the psalm, this is the beauty of Psalms. The speaker changes. After Moshe says his piece, after Moshe says what he says, the Holy One steps in. And Moshe begins to speak the words only from the Holy One's perspective. From the throne of heaven, these words come forth to end the psalm. The Holy One says, because he has set his love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name, my character, my attributes. He will call upon me and I will answer him. And I will be with him in trouble or tribulation, and I will deliver him and bring honor to him with long life. I will satisfy him, and I will show him my Yeshua. My salvation, it says in your English Bibles. The Hebrew is Yeshua. I will show him my Yeshua. And this is the beauty of Psalm 91. This is our psalm for the season. This is what I call Moshe's psalm about Yehoshua and about Caleb. Now, many people have loved this psalm, and it's a beautiful psalm to read, but they claim it without understanding what the conditions of claiming this psalm are. They claim this psalm as if somehow it's some sort of magic potion, just everybody, God's going to watch over you this way. Now, this is those who participate in the plan. This is those who choose to follow the pathway that Yehoshua and Caleb chose in the face of the deepest levels of struggles and trials and tribulations. in the face of the deepest dangers, in the face of their worst fears, in the face of their own betrayal by their own people. 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand. These things may happen. Now, I want you to know this verse because we are in a very critical, crucible time. Every year we go through this. This is part of the prophetic nature of Torah. It's telling us about what we will face in days to come and how we will prepare ourselves, or actually how the Holy One will prepare us to be ready to face these challenges. A little heavy to start this morning. Let's sort of tell you, this is the wilderness phase, week 2 of the wilderness phase of the ultimate extreme bridal makeover. I've started with the book of Leviticus, trying to explain to you that the Holy One is not some sort of austere lawgiver. He's a bridegroom. He's a creator. He's a lover. He's one who desires to build a nation, like he told Abraham he would, a great nation. A great nation of people who he can relate with, who be like not just servants but friends, as Yeshua talked about his disciples. That Yeshua and the Holy One present this process of wanting to build this great nation of lovers, a bride nation. And so beginning with Leviticus 1, we begin talking about the ultimate extreme bridal makeover. He finds us in our fallen, messed up, shrew-like state. He finds us beaten and abused by the world. He finds us crushed and broken. He finds us in all sorts of anger and flesh and worry and anxiety and manipulation and all those things. And he begins to process us through this season of ultimate extreme bridal makeover. And I use the imagery from reality TV shows that are famous and popular these days, or have been in the past few years, where you got a bride and she's not exactly the princess of the world, but because she's going to have her wedding, she begins to go through this process and goes to some expert, and they begin to process her and take her through the protocols. Maybe a plastic surgery is necessary, weight loss, teeth get fixed, whatever it may take, and then training of how to present herself, how to be a good bride, how to be beautiful, how to prepare for the wedding. This sort of thing is done, the ultimate extreme makeover. Well, this truly, the Holy One's calling to us is the ultimate extreme bridal makeover. He takes shrews and turns them into brides. He takes Gomer and turns her into a mother of Israel. This is what he does. And so we're in that process all the time at Sinai. Every one of those times he spoke to us. He spoke to Moshe. Everything he said over us was designed to participate in this great, ultimate, extreme bridal makeover, to take us and change us from the inside out, to turn us out of Eliza Doolittle. Henry Higgins, from that My Fair Lady theory, the Pygmalion story, ancient Pygmalion story. This is what the Holy One's tried to do, is take us and change us from the inside out, to develop us, to prepare us, to actually be worthy, as much as human beings can, of carrying his glory and carrying his words and carrying his shalom and his kedusha, his holiness, into the world. Wow, what an ultimate extreme bridal makeover that is. We were selected. We were bride candidates. We got chosen. How cool is that? How beyond cool. It's stunning. It's humbling. It should make you fall in love all over again with the one who chose you. But now the protocols are in place, and he's taken us through 11 months at Sinai of teaching us and training us and setting us apart. And now he's said, now the second phase. Now we're going out in the wilderness. Look, Hosea talks about how the Holy One said, I will allure her into the wilderness. Yeshua, when Yeshua had received this amazing mikvah, and the Ruach came as in the form of a dove upon him, the first thing that happened is, I will send him out into the wilderness to be tested. This is the proving ground. The wilderness area is the proving ground of everything we were supposed to have learned at Sinai. Everything we're supposed to learn about being the bride of the Holy One, about fulfilling his plans for us and for the world. So now here we are in this ultimate extreme, and phase 2 in the wilderness is here, and man, it's getting intense. This is the week when we see a great thinning of the herd. Now,
If using this analogy a little bit further, I remind you of the book of Esther. When Esther was chosen, and the circumstances of her choosing, no one particularly would be thrilled about that process, but she was chosen among hundreds, maybe thousands of others. And they all went through the same protocols, right? They soaked in oils and perfumes and stuff for these 2 years. And before they ever saw the king, Ahasuerus, before they ever saw this king of Persia, they all had to go through these protocols of bridal preparation to see if they were fit to be brides. And thousands of them, perhaps, of all the beautiful women in Persia were chosen to do this, and they all went through the same protocols, with all the same either hope or fear, whichever one you wish to look at. They were going to be named, claimed, chosen as the queen of Persia, as the bride of this Ahasuerus king. Well, how many of those got chosen? One. And it was Hadassah, the Jewess, who was a secret Jewess at the time. No one knew who she was. Her name was reported to be Esther. But she went through these same protocols, and she had to choose what she would bring with her into her meeting with the Holy One. The garment that she would wear, the jewelry that she would be adorned with, the scent that she would, whatever. She had to decide what she was going to wear, what she was going to carry, what she was going to be adorned with when she entered the presence of the king. Well, so it is with us. If we're going to enter into the presence of the king, we're going to enter into the Eretz Yisrael. We're going to enter into his throne and his area of the throne. We have to decide, what are we going to be carrying? What are we going to be taking with us? Well, that's the week we are in. We're in this challenge. As you all know, this is the Parsha of the spies. I'm always hesitant when I start this teaching because it's been taught so many times. It's been preached by charismatic preachers. And whose report will you believe? Sung about by songwriters and musicians. And I listened to some of those things. I listened to some of those sermons. I remember some of the sermons that I used to preach about this. And I shake my head and said, I didn't get it. I didn't. And I listened to some of the songs, you know. It's like, no, you don't understand this. This is gut-wrenching. This is where it really exists. This is what really matters about life. This is where we decide who we are and why we're here and what we will be willing to do for the Holy One. This is real. So I call it the Parsha of learning to recognize and overcome toxic spycraft. There are spies among us. There are spies within us. As a matter of fact, the end of the parsha is going to be the discussion of the tzitzit, the tassels. And he's going to say something very interesting. You don't get it in the English. You only get it in the Hebrew. He says, you will have them to look at. You will have these tassels, these fringes, these tzitzit, as the Ashkenazi say, zitzes. You will have these things to look at in order that you may remember something. You remember all the commandments. What? Really? You look at it and you remember all? Everything you learned at Sinai, everything we know about what the Torah says, what the Holy One has laid out for us as our plan of life, our way of living a good and fruitful, well-lived life. Just by looking at these, he says, and you'll remember not to do something. Not to go touring. Not to be spies. Not to let your, and what? Not let your heart be a spy. Not let your yaturo, which is the same word we said, send out spies by yaturo, that they may spy out the land of Israel. The same word is in this legend, this discussion about the tzitzis. It says you will have to look at so that you won't go spying, your eyes won't go spying, and your heart won't go spying. And it says after what? After the, there's no real polite way to say this, zonah in Hebrew. Harlotry, flagrant throwing yourself at the world for it's what it has to offer you. So that your eyes won't be doing that, go after the harlotry that's in them, and your heart won't be going after the harlotry that's in it. Your heart has harlotry in it. Your fleshly heart has a temptation to throw yourself at the world and take what it gives you and yield yourself to it in profane, obscene ways. I'm not just talking about sexuality here. I'm just talking about idolatry here. I'm talking about selling yourself to the world, selling yourself to a political structure, selling yourself to an economic system, selling yourself to a health or education or entertainment system, selling yourself for it, prostituting yourself unto it. It says your eyes will do that, and your heart is tempted and inclined to do that as well. You have this spies in you. You have to learn to deal with spycraft. Learn how to overcome spycraft. This is how you become part of the Yehoshua Kalev generation. It's the remnant of this process is to overcome spycraft, and the spycraft of your people, the people around you, the skycraft. But the real issue is always what's in your heart, and what are you looking at? What are you seeing? What is your perspective on life as you begin to look at it? I say, a lot of times that there's that sin. And that's just, I even hate to use the word because it's so misused. Breach of covenant, departing from the pathway, departing from the plan of the Holy One for your life. I call it a sandwich. You have a lust, greed, envy factor that is in your heart by virtue of what we call the fall. And so there's a natural tendency to go after it's abstract, it's general. This is the bread on the outside of the sandwich. It's there. You have to know it's there. You have to understand that deep in yes, I know you're holy, and I know you're righteous, and I know you know Torah, and I know all that stuff. I know you've got Yeshua as your Savior, and I know all that stuff. And here's the deal. In your flesh, in your natural flesh, you still have a tendency, an inclination toward this harlotry. This is the harlotry of the first instance, or the harlotry of the heart. And so you have the lust of the heart. But it's intangible. Then what happens is the meat comes, and your eyes begin to see something related to that lust, that envy, that outrage, that whatever your negativity of energy is, you begin to, and your eyes fixate and focus. This is why Yeshua said it this way. Strange language, unless you know Torah, unless you understand how Torah works, and you understand the Zizis rule. And he says, but I tell you, you've heard it said, that he who commits adultery, whatever. He said, but I tell you this. If you look upon, here's the eyes, here's the lust of the eyes. If you look upon a woman to lust after her, you've lusted all, but now you've lusted after her. Now you see where we've committed adultery. You committed adultery where? In your heart. If you look at her with your eyes, you've latched onto her, you've let the lust of the eyes begin to attach to the lust of the heart. Then you committed adultery with her in your heart already. Now this is an amazing, wise rabbinical saying by the master. An insight into humanity, an insight into our flaws of the fallen flesh. And an understanding, this is not some sort of doctrine he's trying to teach you. He is trying to tell you how to learn to deal with spycraft. how to put spycraft in its place, how not to respond to these reports and these insinuations and this misinformation, disinformation process that the adversary throws at us. So, the spycraft in this case, the picture, the illustration, Numbers 13. I'm going to just quickly read to you 23, 25, 32. We'll have a stand-up reading in just a moment. But I want to read this so you just remember where we stand from. Numbers 13, 23, verse 25 and 32. They came to the valley of Eshcol, and there they cut down a branch with one cluster of grapes. And they carried it between two of them on a pole. And they also brought some of the pomegranates and the figs. More ellipse. A little time goes on. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. Ellipse. And they brought Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, a report, a negative report, a debat in Hebrew, a negative report or slander concerning the land. Now, what have we heard so far in all that they've done that's negative about the land? Their negative report is about the land. The negative report is about the land. What have we seen? What did they observe negatively about the land? Nothing. To the contrary. Much to the contrary. They saw what they observed was the land was, for them at least, very fruitful. They have the evidence of it with them. They brought it back with them. This is an amazing process. And so how would you return a negative report about the land? You could find a negative report about the fact there's a lot of people there, that the cities are well armamented, that they're walled, you could come up with there's giants in the land. You could come up with all sorts of reasons for a negative report if you so desired, based on observation, but not this. Here's something you cannot do based on observation. They had a negative report about the land. And therein lies the challenge. That's why I sometimes hesitate to be as bold as I am about the beauty and the majesty of the land of Israel. Because invariably, somebody, usually out of a Christian tradition, or maybe out of a modern political anti-Israel mindset, begins to immediately backtrack and fight with me and want to argue this process. No, Israel is just a theory. Anywhere you are is the land. It's just, they don't want to accept the preeminence in the plan of God of the land of Israel. And I see it, and I don't want to push this too far. I do not want them to curse the land. I do not want to be responsible for pushing them to curse the land the Holy One is blessed. And so I'll back off of that process. And I'll try to leave that alone, because I don't want to cause them to concrete their negativity toward the land. They just don't understand. They have never understood the power of this land and the beauty and the majesty of it, because I know what happens to people who curse the land. I read the story. I understand the significance and the consequences. And while this is sort of that line, you don't cross. You don't cross that line. Because you see, if you cross that line, you are at total odds with the plan of the Holy One. You will be one of those who will be the betrayer. You will be those who are the reporter, the accusatory ones. If you do not see the beauty and majesty of the land, if you do not hunger for it, if it is not your passion and your desire to see it and to see it flowing in its fruitfulness and its plan, and to be the hub from which all the kingdom message goes out and all the healing power of God goes out, if you don't see that, then you will become an enemy of the people of God. You will become of the 603,548. And I don't want to push you into that process. So I'm careful to say this, and yet I will say it because the land of Israel is absolutely essential. And our participation with it, our blessing it, our praying for the peace of Jerusalem is essential to fulfilling the plan of God. And then us participating in it and blessing it and hopefully visiting it and making pilgrimage to it. And hopefully one day, as Holy One allows us, to and participate with it at a greater level. They came to the Valley of Eshcol and they gave a negative report. They brought Bnei Israel a debat, a negative report or slander concerning the land. And what they said was, the land devours its residents. Now the sages shake their heads with this one. Where did you... What do you... This is what happens when experts get involved. This is why I counsel you, never listen to the experts. Never listen to the scientists. Never listen to the doctors and make that be your final decision. Because you see, they are all colored, they're all tainted by what they have been taught and what they know. And what their agenda is. And so the spies made this up. They interpreted things. They opined. This is the problem when you get into this issue of learning how to deal with actual situations. So the sages say, they come up with a theory. You read this, and it's just fascinating. It says, what happened was, remember that the Holy One had said, I will go before you in the land? And I will drive out before you the Canaanites and all the ites. And so the legend is, the legend of the sages is that everywhere the spies went, they were never recognized. 40 days. I mean, in Joshua, when we read the Haftarah this week, in Joshua, they get discovered the first day. They can't hide for one stinking day going into Jericho. But these spies, 40 days, wandering the land freely, carrying a bundle of grapes from the valley of Eshcol, which wasn't their first step, which was close to their first step. They didn't get seen. Why? So the sages say, well, the reason they didn't get seen was because everywhere they went, the natives were having funerals for those who had died. And this is the basis, according to the sages, of, I'm not trying to tell you whether to believe this or not. I'm trying to give you a picture of understanding that the reason they interpreted the burial, the funerals, if they did happen, of these people, and they were so caught up in their grief or in their mournings in the ancient Middle Eastern culture that they didn't even notice these people doing what they did. The reason they said is that they were having these funerals is because the land was devouring its people. But is that even a... But the sages, of course, will say, that's not what happened. The Holy One told you what was going to happen. He was going to drive people. He was going to prepare the land for you to come in. So therefore, what he was going to do, assuming these funerals were taking place, as the legend says, assuming that were to happen, what was happening is he was thinning out the herd on the other side. It was their time to begin to diminish in their numbers so that the people would be able to come in and be confident that they would be able to prevail. But instead, they interpreted the situation, they interpreted the facts, made their own narrative. This is spycraft. To take situations, turn the narrative and the vocabulary the way in which it fits your purposes and fits your agenda, and boy, are we ever in a world of spycraft. We live in a world of spycraft. Most of what you hear in media, from politicians, from theologians, from religious organizations, from political organizations, from medicine, from doctors, from science, is spycraft. It is designed to do something. It is designed to take a narrative or make a narrative out of an observation that is not a legitimate observation, not a legitimate opinion, not a legitimate position. And it's usually 100% or at least 180 degrees opposite of where it is. So this promise. The Holy One had said in Exodus 34, after the Sea of Reeds, this is at Sinai, in the cleft of the rock. At Sinai, in the cleft of the rock, the Creator of the universe had spoken to Moshe, and Moshe had told everybody about it. Exodus 10 and 11, and then verse 24. Behold, the Holy One said, I make a covenant. This is after Sea of Reeds, after Egypt's all over, after the Egyptians are all dead. Behold, I make a covenant. This is the cleft of the rock covenant. Behold, I make a covenant. Before all your people, I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth. Now, by this stage, that's a lot. There have been some marvels done in the earth, because he's done them just in the past few weeks before this announcement was made. I will do marvels such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among whom you are shall see the work of the Holy One. For it is an awe-inspiring thing that I will do with you. Behold, I'm driving out from before you the Emori, and the Canaani, and the Cheti, and the Perizi, and the Hivi, and the Yebusi, all those ites. And I will cast out the nations before you, and enlarge your borders, and neither will even any man covet your land when you go up to appear before the Holy One your God 3 times in the year. This is the covenant. This is the promise. This is the truth. This is the objective reality of the kingdom. Now, the problem is we now start the spin. Everybody wants to find a way to spin this. In other words, because they don't want to face the giant. They don't want to face the challenge. They would rather be on the sidelines, or they would rather be in the armchair criticizing. Well, that's most of what we deal with today. Spycraft is what spies do and how spies work. It's far more sinister than curiosity-based information or data collection. I think we think of the spies as being sent out to collect data. And that's what they were sent out for. That's not what they did. Spycraft is selective, agenda-centric, selective viewing, selective seeing, selective perspective, and then agenda-specific or centric. Planting of information or disinformation or misinformation. Cultivating that information, disinformation, misinformation. Then harvesting at appropriate time for them that information, disinformation, through sowing fear-mongering and demoralizing and hate-mongering, in our day, race-baiting, gender bias targeting, class envy inciting, strategically designed to sabotage a mission. Spycraft is designed to sabotage a mission or overthrow a nation. Spycraft is designed to sabotage a mission or overthrow a nation. One more time. Spycraft is designed to sabotage a mission or overthrow a nation. And now you see how dangerous spycraft is, because we are here all about a mission. The mission, the Holy One has told us what it is. We are to become His Am Segilah, His kingdom of priests, His holy nation. We are to be His receptors of holiness and those who exude and emit holiness into the world. Kedusha, energy, power, light, salt. We are all these things, and this is our mission, and we are to engage with the world no matter how they respond to us, no matter how they react to us, engage them with the things of the kingdom and the wisdom and the words and not only the things of the kingdom, but the persona of the king himself. His very attributes, and he's told us what those are. They lead with mercy. They lead with kindness. They lead with wisdom and covenant faithfulness. This is the inspiration of who we're supposed to bring. This is our mission. And so the spies, the saboteurs, are here to begin to take and destroy our mission focus and distract us with other things and turn us away. And they're also here to overthrow our nation. What nation are we talking about? The Bnei Israel, the great nation that the Holy One promised Abraham. Now, that great nation they promised Abraham had some very unique characteristics, very important characteristics to the grand plan. That they would be a blessing. Our calling, our mission, our nation status is to be a blessing. Not a judgment wreaker, we're to be a blessing. And to speak a blessing, to release a blessing into every family, every mishpacha, every bloodline on the face of the earth throughout the world. This is what we're here for. So no wonder there is a plan to sabotage our mission. No wonder there is a plan afoot to overthrow this particular nation. Well, what are the tools? Surveillance, subterfuge, selectively timed releases of misinformation, all designed to activate things. So let's talk about where we are. As Parsha Be'alotcha concluded, remember the whole story of Miriam. Miriam and Aharon had spoken negative complaints, criticisms of Moshe. And the Holy One had visited him and said, I speak to him beak to beak, face to face. I release my words into his mouth. I put my words into his mouth. And on a regular, consistent basis, not like prophets who from time to time may get a dream or a vision, may get a word in season or out of season. Those levels of prophecy are what the Lord. But I get this guy beak to beak, and we're I feed him daily what he gets. So you need to leave him alone, not speak negative about him. And, of course, Miriam was struck with Zarat. And she spent 7 days out of the camp, the minimum amount of time. And she responded well to this discipline. And then in verse 16 of Numbers 12, it says, the last verse, and afterward the people lifted up from Hatzerot. After she came back to the camp, after Miriam came back to the camp, the people lifted up from the place they were, which is called Hatzerot. Hatzerot is a Hebrew word which means trumpets that give a pure tone. The silver trumpets were Hatzerot. And the tone was pure, and it was good communication, trustworthy communication from the Holy One. So they left the place of trustworthy communication with the Holy One. And then it says, Vayachanu b'midbar Paran. And they encamped in the wilderness of Paran. Now, Paran is a very interesting name in Hebrew. I'll tell you about its derivatives first, and then I'll talk to you about its history and its nature. Paran is a picture of anyone. I don't know about the rest of the world, but here in Texas, we know what a Bradford Pear is, right? A Bradford Pear bears a beautiful white flower. It's a hybrid. It bears no fruit, no edible fruit. It's called a pear, but it doesn't have any pears. Little bitty hard things that you can't eat. It's an ornamental, as some people would call it. This is what Paran means. It's an ornamental that shows fruit but doesn't produce, shows flower, blossom, shows beauty but doesn't produce fruit. So we have left Hatzerot, the true tone, the place of true tone, where we're truly communicating with the Holy One. And now we've gone up into this place where there's a lot of fluff and flower, but there's no fruit. And that's where we'll be. And Paran, that's the etymology or the derivatives of this word. We're going to be in a place of, it looks good, but it's got no fruit. This is kind of like the report of the spies. It's going to look okay, look like they know what they're talking about. This is like all the experts you're hearing in today's world. They look like they know what they're talking about. They should know what they're talking about, but they're twisting the facts. They're twisting, and they're producing no fruit other than inedible, hard stuff that you just probably poisonous to you if you took it. And so that's the etymology. What's the history? Now remember where Paran, what happened in Paran? Paran's this is not the first time it's been mentioned. Every time in Torah you see a name, place, or a word, you say, where have I heard that before? This is part of the nature of learning the Torah. Where have I heard this before? What is the story behind this story? Why are you telling me we're coming to the wilderness of Paran? Well, something happened in Paran, back in Genesis. And Paran is the place where, the wilderness of Paran is where Ishmael and Hagar ran away. Twice. and where they wound up settling, it says they settled they took up, and the thing about Hagar and the thing about Ishmael is they were very negative in their approach. They were critical, judgmental. Ishmael was a wild donkey of a man, it says, and his hand was against every man. He was argumentative, and he was combative, and he was defensive in all that he did. And here, this is where they've come, and they have set up their residence, and this is where they have offshed. They have downloaded all of their negativity. They're long gone. They've passed away, but the negativity that they sowed into that land is still there. So we come, and we're in the world of Hagar and Ishmael. And no wonder we're in this atmosphere of negativity. We're in this atmosphere of hostility, this atmosphere of being every man against his brother, and of being braying. You know, we can't resist. That's donkeys. They bray. Wild donkey of a man? What would a wild donkey of a man? You just keep eawing and braying everywhere he goes, making a lot of noise, loud talking, saying nothing of any significance, but talking a lot. Well, welcome to our world. Welcome to America, to South Africa, to England. Welcome to the Philippines and Malaysia. Welcome to South America, to Canada, in 2021, the year 5781 in the Hebrew calendar. Welcome to this world. We are in this world where all you're getting is a lot of people making a lot of ee-aw sounds. They're saying a lot of stuff really loud and really in a way that sets your ears on edge, sets your teeth on edge, but they aren't really saying anything of substance. They are not hatzerot. They are not true tone. They're not speaking helpful, fruitful truth. They're speaking a lot of stuff they know. Well, that's where we are. They are offloading discontent. And so I stop at this particular stage as we're going to run out of time here. I want to ask you, because we have this big crucible, this big test right in front of us this week and the weeks to come. We've got more weeks to come. The next 3 weeks will be weeks of testing, weeks of crucible, weeks of thinning the herd, weeks of seeing who is really dedicated and who's not. So I want to ask you before you go into, are you content or are you discontent? Maybe I should ask your wife or your husband. Maybe I should ask your children. Because you think you're one way, but the way you act and the way you talk and the way you behave and the way you interact with the rest of the world may tell them a whole different story. What I really want to know is, are you, because if you're not content now, you're not going to be content in a few weeks when things get really tough. So are you content? And this is a challenge. This is one of those important things. Are we content with, at Passover, those of you who follow a more or less traditional Passover celebration, we have this amazing thing. Daenu. I would have been content. And we start out with, if you had only one thing, but you didn't do all the other stuff you did, we should have been content. And it goes on through, and by the time you're through, you sit there and say, wow, what he's done for us. What an amazing thing. How humble we should be, how honored we should be, how content we should be because of what he has done for us in the past and what he's doing for us now. This is Daenu. And so I ask you this before we go any further. Are you content? Do you believe the Holy One is good? Do you believe he has done good things for you? Are you fully confident he is going to do good things for you? Are you fully confident he's already in the process of setting things up where he can do these good things for you? He is at work. He is bringing good into every situation. Are you fully confident of that? Because check your Facebook post and see. Check your conversations around the table and see what you're saying and if it's consistent with the fact that you are content. That you are saying Daenu. Because a lot of times your actions, your behavior right now already are betraying the fact that you are not at all content. You are unhappy. You are unsatisfied. You are unforgiving. You're angry. It's kind of like if you have felt forgiveness yourself. If you have received forgiveness when you did not deserve it. Have you? If you have received mercy when you deserve judgment. If you have received favor when you deserve disfavor or scoffing. If you have received these things, then the natural response within you is to turn around and give those to someone else. Because that is just the way your king, your creator does. He always gives them that chance of favor, opportunity of favor, opportunity of mercy. So this is that process. Now, so if you are discontent, you will say, I haven't received enough mercy, therefore I can't give it. I won't give it. I refuse to give mercy. I must judge them. I must criticize them. This is a sign of your discontent. This is a sign of your Yishmael operative in you, the spirit of Yishmael, the spirit of Hagar operative in you. And now when you try to take Torah into that and say, I'm doing this on the basis of Torah, now you know what Paul was saying in Galatians. Cast the bondwoman out. And her son, this does not belong in the Torah. You cannot take the Torah and the attitude and the mindset of Hagar and Ishmael into it at the same time. You can't be critical and judgmental and angry at people and still claim that you are following and walking in the Torah. You may know it stem to stern. You may be able to quote it. You may be able to condemn others with it, but you are not walking in it unless you are walking in the anti of Hagar and anti of Ishmael. Well, so we're at this stage. Are you content? And the next question I would ask you is, if you're having any hesitation whatsoever in that, do you want to be? Do you want to be content with who God is? Who your Creator is and who He designed you to be? Do you want to be content with your world and with your place in it and your purpose in it and your calling in it? Do you want to be content dealing with the struggles of life and being lifted up above them, like He said in Psalm 91? When 10,000 may fall at your right hand, but you will be set upon a high place and protected and blessed. Now, we'll finish our discussion today because of time. We'll finish our discussion by discussing the difference between divine emotion and human flesh emotion. There are references in this parsha to the Holy One becoming, in English you read angry. His wrath aroused. And as natural human beings, as fleshly human beings, we think we know what that looks like. We think we know what, and we think He feels what we feel. We think His anger is, His wrath is like our wrath. We are fools. We are way, if we think our wrath is what He feels, then we are deceived. We have been victims of spycraft. James said it this way: the wrath of a human being, the anger of a human being cannot work the righteousness of God. Cannot. Impossible. 100% impossible. Your wrath will never, your anger, you're angry about something? You think you're doing something good for the kingdom? You're actually working at 100% saboteur, cross purposes to the kingdom. When you're angry and you hold your anger and you don't let it go before the sundown, before the sun sets on your, don't let the sun set on your anger. When you don't do this and you carry that anger, you are working as a saboteur, cross purposes of the kingdom. He said, but the Holy One got something. He got something. He felt something. Well, we've had this conversation somewhat before, but af, the Hebrew word that's usually translated as anger in this process, is what a bull does whenever you enter or someone enters its territory, or messes with its bale of hay, or with its flock, its herd, and it wants you to leave it alone. Back away from the vehicle. Get out of my pasture. Get away from my heifer. Get away from my hay bale. Get out of here. And here it is. This is your warning. You get one warning. Now, that's not anger to us. Anger to us is, we're going to sneak up behind you. We're going to sucker punch you. Because you deserve it. And the Holy One's idea of anger is, I'm going to warn you because I don't want you to get what you deserve. Now, you see the difference between divine emotion, spiritual emotion, and fleshly emotion. This is why there is a vast difference between happiness, which is a human fleshly thing that is based upon us getting what we want or what we like, versus joy. Joy and happiness are not the same thing. Happiness is a flesh emotion. It comes and goes based on the circumstances. Joy, on the other hand, does not have anything to do with your circumstances. It has to do with your relationship with the Creator of the universe. You are joyful. That's why He said, rejoice and be exceeding glad, Yeshua said, when everything goes right. When everybody's nice to you. When you're getting everything you want. No, that's not what He said. Rejoicing has nothing to do with that. Rejoicing has to do with the fact that instead you can deal with any situation, persecution, abuse,
threatening, a betrayal. One of the most fascinating things about the discussions of the Master have to do with his crucifixion. And in the midst of the betrayal that took place to get him crucified, which of course he knew was going to take place. He even prophesied it was going to take place. But it didn't mean he didn't feel some fleshly emotion whenever Peter betrayed him, whenever all the stuff that took place happened, the denials, the betrayals, Judas kissed him. The feeling that in his flesh, in his human part, would say this is very bad. But it says that for the joy set before him, he endured suffering, and even unto the death on the cross, for the joy set before him, in the middle of the betrayal, through the depths of the deep, dark levels of the betrayals, of the thinning of the herd, of the funds falling, 1,000 falling on one side and on the right hand. This is why joy is different. Now, when I ask you, are you content? I didn't mean to ask you if you were happy. If everything's going the way you like it, if you're feeling good about yourself, you're feeling good about the world, if you're feeling good about the future, I didn't ask you about that. That's not what I'm saying. That is a fleshly idea of contentment. The spiritual idea of contentment is, I am fully confident I know my Redeemer lives. And in the end, he will walk upon the earth. I am fully confident that he is working good into all situations. Always working good for those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. I am fully confident that he is even now, though the situation in the world, in my life, in my family, in my nation, in the land of Israel, in the world in general, looks dark and dreary, that he is in full command, and he will bring forth good out of even this. Now, this is what I ask you if you are content. Because Yehoshua and Caleb are going to be two standing against not just 10, but 603,548. That's just the men over 20 years old, and doesn't include any of the tribe of Levi. So let's just read. Are Yehoshua and Caleb content? Are you? Are we? It's important that we know. It's important that we say, if I'm not content, I want to be. I want to get rid of every level of discontent, dissatisfaction, distrust out of my system. I want to get it gone before this next test comes, because I don't want to be cold. Not because I don't want to be rejected. Because I was born for more than this. My calling is to walk in the ways of the Holy One and do his will. I've come in the volume of the book to do your will. I delight to do your will. And that's the reason we hold on to our contentment. Let's stand, if you would. We're going to read a portion of our text. If you would, we'll start with our usual blessing of the house. You may join us if you know it. Open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth, so do not hide your commandments from us. Our souls cry out for your judgments at all times. How can a young man keep his way pure? By living according to your Torah. Your Torah is a lamp unto our feet, a light unto our path. Numbers 13, verse 1. And the Holy One spoke to Moshe, saying, Send Shelach, send out men for you, for yourselves, to spy out on the land of Canaan, that I am giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you are to send a man, every one a leader, an elder among them. So Moshe sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the instruction, the word of the Holy One. And of them, men who were heads of the children of Israel. Now these were the names. From the tribe of Reuben, Shammua, the son of Zachur. From the tribe of Shimon, Shaphat, the son of Hori. From the tribe of Yehuda, Caleb, the son of Yefunah. From the tribe of Issachar, Igal, the son of Yosef. From the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea, the son of Nun. From the tribe of Benjamin, Palti, the son of Raphu. From the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel, the son of Sodi. From the tribe of Yosef, that is from the tribe of Manasseh, Gadi, the son of Sushi. From the tribe of Dan, Amiel, the son of Gamali. From the tribe of Asher, Setur, the son of Michael. From the tribe of Naphtali, Nabi, the son of Vophsi. From the tribe of Gad, Geul, the son of Malchi. And these are the names of the men whom Moshe sent out to spy out the land. And Moshe called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Yehoshua. Then Moshe sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said to them, go out this way into the south, and go up into the mountains, and see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, or few or many, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, or whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are forests there or not. And be of good courage, and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now, the time was the season of the first ripe grapes, and so they went up and they spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob, near the entrance of Hamat. And they went up through the south, and they came to Hebron. Ahiman, Sheshi, and Talmi, the descendants of Anak, were there. And Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. And then they came to the valley of Eshcol, and there they cut down a branch with one cluster of grapes, and they carried it between the two of them on a pole. And they also brought some of the pomegranates and figs. And the place was called the valley of Eshcol because of the cluster that the men of Israel cut down there. And then they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. And now they departed and came back to Moshe and Aaron and to all the assembly of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and to all the congregation, and they showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him and said, we went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large, and moreover we saw the descendants of Anak there. And the Amalekites, they dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan. And then Caleb quieted the people before Moshe. And he said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are able to overcome it. But the men who had gone up with him, the 10, said, we are not able to go up against the people. They are stronger than we. And they gave the children of Israel a dibarah, a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people who we saw in it are men of great stature. Where we saw the giants, the descendants of Anak, came from giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. So all the assembly lifted up their voices, and they cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel complained against Moshe and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. The opposite of Dayenu.
Why has the Holy One brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? And so they said to another, let us select a leader and return to Egypt. And then Moshe and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Yehoshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes. And they spoke to all the assembly of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Holy One delights in us, then he will bring us into the land. He will give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Holy One, nor have fear of the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Holy One is with us. Do not fear them. But all the assembly said to heap up stones against them. And then the glory of the Holy One appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. And the Holy One said to Moshe, how long will these people reject me? And how long will they not believe me? With all the signs and wonders that I performed among them, I will strike them with a pestilence and will disinherit them. I will make of you a nation greater and mightier than they. And Moshe intercedes. I'm going to move on down because I want to finish. Verse 20 of 14. And the Holy One said, I have pardoned according to your word. As you've said, I've pardoned them before. But truly as I live, all the earth will be filled with the glory of the Holy One. You may be seated. And he goes on. Now this little interesting little statement is the one with which we'll conclude. In the middle of pronouncing his thinning of the herd, and the fact that only these two of the remnant will lead the next generation into the land, he says something that should stir you to the ultimate core of your being. This is your purpose. This is your destiny. This is your part to play in this whole story. He says, surely the earth, the whole earth, will be filled with the glory of the Holy One. Did you not realize this is what's really happening? This is the true in the way the story ends. This is what happens in the end of days. This is how everything is working toward this goal. The Holy One has proclaimed it. He has ordained it. He has declared it. He has patterned and made the plan for it to happen. He has strategically choreographed it that the entire earth will be filled with His glory in this day. Now, why did we lose sight of that? When did we lose sight of that? When did we think that the Antichrist was going to take over and control everything in the world and cause people to be horribly... When did we forget that what the Holy One is doing is causing His glory to be manifested throughout the entire world? When did we forget that He is doing the things and choreographing history? When did we think that somehow men and institutions and governments and science and medicine and politics and ideology was somehow running the world? When did we lose sight of the fact that this whole plan of the Holy One that we have enlisted for, that we are part of, that we are called to participate in, is to bring the manifest glory of the Holy One into every square centimeter, every square inch of the earth, and all the earth will be filled with His glory. Well, I want to remind you of that before you face your next set of trials. That whatever it looks like is happening, whatever it feels like it's happening to your natural flesh, what is really happening is the Holy One is bringing to pass what He said He would bring to pass. All the earth is going to be filled with the knowledge of His glory. Shabbat shalom to you all. Be blessed. We'll see you next week.